Small Business Management Plan workshop or webinar today. We hope that when the program is finished, that you will have a better understanding of what's important for business owners to do to plan for some of the many emergencies or disasters that can come to them. Tell you a little bit about who the Small Business Development Center is. The Small Business Development Center is a federal and state program. We are a resource partner of the Small Business Administration. We do one-on-one business consulting. Everything we talk about and do with our clients is totally confidential, and it's protected by federal law to remain that way. All of our consulting services are at no cost to our clients. So if at the end of this program you feel like you would like to have some assistance creating an emergency plan, please visit one of our centers. We have 21 centers across the state. Those 21 centers cover all 46 counties of South Carolina. The South Carolina SBDC program was one of the original pilot programs in 1979. And we have been in operation serving small businesses, entrepreneurs, and business owners for over 41 years. I am Martin Goodman, and along with my colleague in Hilton Head, we cover Beaufort County and Jasper counties in the low country of South Carolina. My office is in Beaufort at University of South Carolina, Beaufort, and my contact information is there. If you're in the local area and need our assistance, please contact me. I'm happy to assist you in any way with any business problem or issue or thing that you would like to have assistance with. So let's get started with the program. Emergency management. As we all know, emergencies can strike at any time, in any place, and they usually do that at the worst time. Emergencies can vary from a fire in a business to a major hurricane, and that's what most of us in the low country think about. When we think about natural disasters, we start worrying about hurricanes and how that can affect our personal lives and homes as well as our businesses. And of course, as we found in 2020, it can even include a worldwide pandemic. Disasters happen. One of the things that we'll talk about just a little later is cybersecurity, where all of us on the East Coast are experiencing issues with trying to buy gas, finding gas, price gas, all because of a cyber attack on a pipeline company that provides a lot of fuel for the southeastern states. So when you think about what can happen to my business, you really have to be very broad-minded in thinking about everything that can happen. As a business owner, you need to be very conscious of the risk that could come with your business. You have to think about what strategies and solutions that you can develop that will help you survive in an emergency. Small business owners must prepare themselves through proper planning. So let's talk about a small business emergency plan. Why do we need one? Well, we just said in the last slide that emergencies happen all the time. Whether you live in the coastal areas where hurricanes can be a major issue, if one forms and comes our way, to a fire in your business, to a break-in. We think about all kinds of emergencies that can befall us, not just natural emergencies, but those that happen of man-made nature. Terrorism is a threat to businesses, civil unrest, as we saw a lot of businesses affected by some of the civil unrest during last year. And then, of course, we don't want to forget about the pandemic, which affected most businesses across the country. And one of the things you have to think about is what is the probability of an incident happening? You know, could your business have a fire? Could your business be involved with a natural disaster? So you want to establish the need for a plan. You want to form a team of business of individuals in your business, and it could be a team of people outside your business, like your insurance specialist. You want to establish those folks and get them involved with the planning of the emergency plan. One of the first things you want to do is meet with your insurance provider and update the insurance information. One of the things that a lot of people along the coast of South Carolina is very conscious of is meeting with their insurance, because if you have a disaster and your insurance is replacement insurance, typically that insurance policy has a dollar amount per square foot that they would reimburse you to repair your home or your business. As you probably know, materials costs for construction have gone up a lot in the last year. And so if you have not had a look at your insurance premium or your insurance policy and determine some of those things that are in it, it's very important to update your insurance. Meet with your insurance provider. We recommend meeting with your insurance provider on a annual basis at the very least to update the information and make sure you're fully covered so that you can recover should something happen to your business. And then you want to conduct a vulnerability analysis, determine what kind of emergencies can your business face, and then what's the probability of those things happening. One of the things that's very important is you need to assess the human impact that a disaster can fall, if a disaster falls on your business. How would it affect your employees? What effect will they have? Will they be able to continue to work? Will you be able to continue to have them work? Can you continue to pay them as the business owner? One of the things that we are very conscious of in the low country or along the coastal areas is that we often during hurricane season have to evacuate. And that's a pretty tedious process. It's pretty tedious if you're just evacuating yourself and your family from your home. But if you have to do that and additionally evacuate your business, now it becomes very, very tedious. And one of the things that you have to be aware of is what the daycare policies are in your area. If the daycare start shutting down very early in an announcement that an evacuation is going to happen, you're going to lose a lot of your employees because they won't be able to have their children cared for. So they'll have to go get their children and they probably won't come back to work. So be very cautious. You may want to talk to your emergency management director in your county. They will have an idea of what daycares are going to do because they use that in their planning as part of the evacuation process for the county. And then you want to develop a database so that you can determine where your employees are going to evacuate to if they leave. How soon can they come back if you notify them? Or even more important that we found with a lot of businesses is how soon will they come back? And then you want to make sure you have all their contact information and a way to contact them. You want to assess any potential property impact on your building, the property that you may be leasing, with every emergency that you have identified previously. So if it's a fire, obviously there will be impact. If it's a flood Are you in a flood zone? Is it going to affect your business because your business could be flooded? So you want to assess the potential to your property that an emergency or disaster could fall. Then you want to think about the business impact. If you're able to get back and get open after a disaster or after an emergency, will there be customers that can also that you can depend on to get your business back up and running? You want to think about some customers that may be dependent on you being there and how you can better serve them should an emergency happen in your business. Pandemic concerns. Up until last year, we really didn't talk a lot about that when we were thinking about emergencies. However, 2020 and the COVID pandemic really brought a lot of information to all of us. And what you need to think about in your business is what is the vulnerability that your business has to a pandemic? Would your business be considered an essential business? Essential businesses were able to stay open when local and state and federal governments were shutting down other businesses. If you do have to shut down your business, do you have the technology for your employees to work on a remote basis? Is your business one that can be operated from a remote site by your employees? When you think about the pandemic, if you are able to remain open, or when you start returning to work after you've been cleared to be open, are you prepared for your business with proper sanitation procedures that you can clean and clean often? As we saw, this can affect not only your employees, but also your customers. You want to make sure that you have the necessary personal protection equipment for every employee. That would include masks and cleaning supplies and sanitation supplies. And then how will you remain in contact with your customers? If your business remains open and it's an essential business, you want to make sure you're able to market that your customers know that you are open. And if you have to close, how will you need to think about how you will be able to communicate with your customers to let them know that perhaps your team will be still working from a remote location, and it may be virtual or online, but you may still be able to do that. Great sources for that is social media, website. In a lot of cases, if you aren't able to open, having your business closed, you need to have a presence so that your customers can remain in contact with you and find you and do business with you. If your business is required to close and then is able to reopen, you want to think about some of the guidelines. Remember that some people, including your employees and your customers, may support reopening. We found that many businesses that when they were able to reopen during the pandemic, both their employees and their customers had real concerns about coming to a place of business. And so they were really concerned about what procedures were you taking as the business owner to make sure that they would be safe if they came to do business with you. Remember that these viewpoints, whether people support your reopening or not, will span customers, staff, vendors, and others. Be sure to only use OSHA, CDC, or DHEC guidelines for reopening procedures. Make sure you follow those. You want to remember that there might be capacity restrictions inside your building, and those are generally based on the occupancy that the fire marshal comes in and the fire codes present that tells you what is the capacity of people inside your building. If you're at 50%, then it's 50% of that occupancy based on the fire codes. Remember that if you do reopen, social distancing during a pandemic will probably remain to be important. The distances may change, so you need to be aware of that. Personal protection equipment is a must, so your employees need to have that. They need to have it available to them, and there must be adequate supplies of it so that it can be changed off. Remember, your hours may need to be adjusted to accommodate your staff and the ability of them to be able to come into work. And then as you may have seen, in many cases when stores were open, they opened special hours for high risk group customers so that they could come in when it's less crowded and only had the same age groups or high risk groups in the stores at the same time. So you may want to consider how you might do that and pre-plan if you're going to have certain hours that you're going to be holding for these high risk customer groups. Remember, you're going to be responsible for the safety enforcement in your business. So if you require masks, it's going to be your responsibility to make sure that people have masks. Or if social distancing, if you want your customers spaced, it's your responsibility to mark those spaces and then enforce that people do honor those space requirements. So let's talk about the emergency plan itself. Obviously, the emergency plan is much like a business plan in that it has an executive summary. An executive summary is just an overview of what the plan's all about. It may have some high point features in it. It may detail who the major personnel that will be conducting the plan or be working with the plan are. And typically an executive summary is written after you complete the plan so that you can make sure that you include all important factors that someone that wanted to read a brief summary of your plan would have by reading the executive summary. First of all, as we said before, you want to identify an emergency management team. Some of those could be part of the team that did the planning for the emergency plan. In other cases, it may be part of the management team, supervisors, department head, etc. Those team members will have specific jobs and tasks as we see a little later on in the program. But you want to make sure that you have people that are knowledgeable, that understand completely what the plan is, what their job is, and what their responsibilities will be in the case of any emergency. Communications is extremely important. You want to make sure you're able to communicate at all times with your employees, your customers, vendors, other people in the public. We talked just a little bit before about an emergency information file. This can be either in hard copy form or electronic, but you need to have emergency information for all your employees, including emergency contact, who you would contact as the business owner should there be an emergency with an employee. You want to have the information that should your business have to evacuate for any reason, that where your employees would go and how you would get in touch with them. Make sure you have complete contact information in that file. And as you'll see later, you want to make sure that file is accessible to you and that you take it with you should you have to vacate your building. You want to think about how your employees are going to be notified to return to work if they have to leave the building or if there's an evacuation. Evacuations can not only just be for hurricanes, but a few years ago in the Midlands, there was flooding across the Midlands. Businesses had to be evacuated. There was recently a chemical spill where businesses had to be evacuated because of the toxic fumes that the chemical spill created. So thinking about your employees leaving, you want to make sure that you know where they're going and how to notify them to return. And who's going to do that? Is that going to be you? Do you have a communications person that will do that? Are you going to delegate that responsibility to another team member? You need to do that, and they need to understand what their responsibilities are if you designate that. Public information, if something happens in your business, that might require the news folks to come out and ask you about it. If there was a fire or if there was an issue at your business, you want to identify who's going to represent your business. You certainly don't want every employee to be able to talk about what's going on. The information that you put out should be determined by you, perhaps your marketing people, and you need to determine who will represent your company and make sure that the rest of your staff know that they are not to make statements to the press or the media should that come about. Remember that social media is a great source for communicating both with your employees, with your customers, and with the general public. Life safety. You want to spend some time here. Remember that it's your responsibility for what happens in your business. So you want to develop evacuation procedures and routes and how to get people out of your business, whether that be your employees or your customers. Also, as has been the case in many shootings over the past few years, in most cases, a shelter-in-place order is issued. So you want to have procedures so that employees know if they're notified to shelter in place, what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to act, and where they're supposed to go. So look at shelter-in-place procedures. If you have evacuations of your business, you want to have assembly areas and have some of your team members. You remember back in the beginning, we talked about some of the team members that may have some responsibility. Well, accountability of all the staff is going to be the responsibility of some of your team managers. So if you, if we all, back in high school or elementary school, we used to have fire drills where we'd all leave the building and there was a place we were all supposed to go, and the teacher counted heads and identified everybody and made sure everybody was out of the building and accounted for in the assembly area. You want that same thing to happen. If your building has a fire, you want to make sure that you get the employees out, that you get staff, other staff out, that are management, and that there are assembly areas that they go to well away from any risk. And then you want to have everyone present and accounted for to make sure that no one is left trapped in a building that may be on fire or there's a problem. You also want to make sure that you have all the necessary personal protection equipment for each employee in any emergency. So fire extinguishers and making sure that people understand how to operate a fire extinguisher. Those kind of things. You want to make sure that protection is there and that they have the personal protection that they need, especially if you have a business that deals with hazardous materials. Mitigation. Mitigation is how do you do things that can prevent serious damage or worse damage in your business. So when you look at mitigation, what steps can you take to protect your building, your employees and staff, and your data? We here in the Low Country are often faced with, as I said before, with hurricanes. So, window protection, whether it is hurricane shutters, board up, anything like that. Those are things that are often done when you're in a hurricane prone zone. But you've got to do that ahead. You've got to know where those items are. You've got to have somebody that's going to put them up. So that's all part of the mitigation. You want to make sure that there's safety items that your staff will be protected. And then all your business data. We're going to talk about that in detail in just a few minutes. Remember that anytime you're dealing with mitigation, redundancy is always the case. You want to have backup plans and then backup plans to those plans. In case something happens with one plan that you have, you want a backup plan to that. The main thing is you want to make sure that as little damage is done to your building in the event that it is something that can happen to the structure. You want to make sure that all your employees are always safe and that data is protected so that you can continue to work once your business is able to get back and running. Property protection. The primary source of protection for most real estate property will be insurance, whether that's the building, whether that's your equipment, your inventory. Insurance is critical. And as I said before, you want to make sure that at least on an annual basis that you are meeting with your insurance specialist, going over your policies, making sure your policies are current, making sure that you're covering everything that needs to be covered or that you can afford to cover, and to make sure that you understand the policy coverage. In a lot of cases, business owners will call and when they open their business, when something happens in their business, they'll buy insurance. Well, in a lot of cases, they're not really aware of everything that that insurance policy might cover, or more importantly, might not cover. You want to make sure that you have security systems in your building to protect it, fire protection, as well as theft, break-in protection. And then you want to think about data protection and cybersecurity measures. One of the things that South Carolina SBDC is really focusing on is working with our clients to make sure that they understand cybersecurity risks and the things that they can do to mitigate those risks. So you want to be aware of that. Cash security. Should you evacuate, you need to make sure that you know what the schedule of the bank is. Because if you come back and you're expecting to be able to go to the bank and get cash to operate on, and the bank's not going to be open, then you want to make sure that you get that before you leave. And then of course, the security of that cash while you are gone as well. In a lot of cases, I know that the emergency management director here in Beaufort County has talked about in times that they have had that the county has experienced evacuations, that in some cases the owners get so excited trying to get their business shut down, closed up, that they walk away and leave money in the cash drawer. That's the last thing they think about. But if you have to evacuate, especially in emergency situations like a flood, like a hurricane, you want to make sure that you have sufficient cash to operate your business, to pay your staff on hand, because it may not be available once you return. If your facility is going to have to shut down, and this applies to manufacturing processes, chemical processing plants, you want to have in your plan who makes the decision to shut that facility down. And once that decision's made, what factors are considered? What's the timeline? In some manufacturing processes, the shutdown process may take as much as 12 to 24 hours. just for the facility to be able to shut down and shut down the manufacturing processes that are in place. So you want to build into your plan who makes the decisions, how are those decisions made, and then what factors do you need to consider as you shut down the business. Records protection. Records protection is very important. You want to back up computers often, preferably with electronic cloud-based backup. But you will also have hard copy records that need to be backed up and stored off-site if possible. Insurance policies, personnel records, things like that are documents that you may have to have, legal documents. So you want to make sure that you know where they are, you know where to get them, and if possible, a lot of those documents can be stored in storage facilities off-site. So should something happen to your building in the middle of the night, a fire or earthquake, something like that could happen, you would be able, your data would be protected. Cloud-based electronic backup, as I said, is essential, so that you want to make sure that all of your data is available to you at any time. You want to maintain current digital pictures of your building, your equipment, and your inventory. So should something happen, you want as current of pictures as possible, so that will support an insurance claim. If you evacuate your building, make sure that you take pictures of everything before you leave. Your building itself, the security measures you have in place, the inventory, your equipment, all those kind of things. Personnel files, you want to make sure that those are protected. Either if they're hard copy personnel files, you want to either again have them stored off-site or be able to take them with you. If you have electronic versions of personnel files, storing them off-site is also imperative. Insurance policies, you need to make sure that you know where all of your insurance policies are and take them with you should you have to evacuate the building for any reason. You will need those insurance policies as part of filing claims. And then tax returns. As we've seen in some of the natural disasters where the SBA disaster teams come in or FEMA teams come in to assist both residents and business owners, having your tax return is a real benefit so that you're able to support your claims or your needs in the event of a disaster loan. Okay, let's talk about recovery and restoration. First of all, if you are in a zone or in an area where evacuations could happen, you want to make sure that you register your business with the local emergency management department in your county and find out exactly what are the procedures for re-entry. If you are not registered, there is a good chance that you will not be allowed to re-enter the area before everyone is available, is allowed to come back. So if you are registered as the business owner or the management of a business, they will allow you to come in to assess the damage of your business and to start cleaning it up and getting it going. But if you have not pre-registered, then you're not going to be allowed to do that. There's also a process through the South Carolina Emergency Management Division that also you can register your business in. But many counties along the coast have their own registration, and you may be registered with the SCEMD, but the county doesn't recognize that. So you want to make sure that you understand from your local county emergency operations management of how you register so that you will be allowed to re-enter should you be required to evacuate. The next decision you need to make is can you operate the business if the building is destroyed? If you come back and your building's flooded, or if it has totally burned, in the event of a hurricane, if you had severe wind or water damage, can your business operate from a remote site? If so, you want to make sure you have all the necessary equipment available to open an alternative location. In some cases, that may be a tent. And if so, you want to make sure you have generators so you will have electricity, because it may not be on when you get ready to reopen. You want to make sure that you have either taken your computers with you, or you have access to computers with the proper software so you can operate. You'll need all the things you need to open and run and manage your business. Again, such as tents to operate under, tables, seating, portable restroom facilities, etc. You want to know, first of all, you want to have the necessary proof to file a claim for your insurance. And part of that is to know exactly how you file and what will be required if you have to file a claim. So make sure that you understand your policies again when you're talking with your insurance specialist, that they explain to you what's going to be required should you have to file a claim for any reason. Because different information may be required for different types of claims. And then you want to know, how do I go about filing a claim? Can I, is it electronic? Is it online? Do I have to go somewhere to file a claim? You just need to know that for each of your policies. Again, going back to the cash management, you want to make sure that you have on hand sufficient cash to pay your employees and operate the business. In many cases, if banks aren't fully reopened yet, checks may not be accepted. And remember, internet and broadband may not be operating, so you can't do electronic payments. So, cash will be king in a lot of cases where natural disasters have happened. Businesses that had sufficient cash to operate on and to be able to pay their employees had a better opportunity to reopen, get their business going again, and survive than those that didn't have that access to cash. In some cases, especially in the case of a shooter or a disaster that impacts the community, you might want to think about emotional and physical support for your employees. Having somebody available to talk to them if it's emotional, and making sure that that from a physical standpoint, your employees are able to get to work and to do their job without being impaired. You would want to have support agreements with suppliers to be sure goods and inventory is available. Years ago, my wife and I owned some restaurants, and one of the things that we did with our food vendor was that we had a support agreement that said if we were shut down and our coolers did not work or our freezers did not work, they would bring a trailer down with goods in it that we would order to open our restaurant that was refrigerated and had a freezer section in it, so that we could operate out of their trailer until we got our refrigeration and freezers operational again. So you want to make sure that your suppliers, that you have agreements with your suppliers that you can get more inventory should your inventory be destroyed or depleted, and that you're able to get that inventory to you. Remember, if it's a wide-ranging disaster, your suppliers themselves may be the one bringing you that inventory. Okay, what are the resources that you can use to survive during a recovery? Well, as we talked about, typically insurance is the first place you go. Having sufficient coverage and adequate coverage is going to be imperative. Knowing how to file a claim and understanding what timelines are going to be in place for you to be able to get some funds or to get some relief through your insurance. Cash reserves are essential. Cash will be king in any disaster. If your business is able to get up and running or it survives a disaster, will there be a sufficient customer base doing business with you so that you'll have sufficient cash flow to keep your business going? The SBA has a disaster program where they offer low interest, long-term loans to assist business owners. This came into play very much during the pandemic. Many business owners were able to get SBA emergency disaster relief loans. They were long-term, 30-year terms, and the interest rate was 3.75%. And then often in many communities, there were local assistance to help should a disaster strike either a business or strike the area. So there may be some local means state or county or city assistance. Remember, in disaster planning and preparedness, only planning will enable the business owner to be able to survive a major disaster. The better prepared a business owner is, the better chance of recovery and being able to survive. In the event of a major disaster, our communities need every business to survive in order to recover to the prosperity and viability that the local economy had prior to the disaster. So your business will be important. So you want to make sure that you're able to get your business up, running, and being able to serve your customers. Some of the sources that you can go to that has great information. The Department of Homeland Security, the ready.gov website has a lot of information about a lot of disasters and how you can plan and prepare for them. We are available at the South Carolina Small Business Development Centers. Our centers will be manned either at remote locations or in our facilities if possible. Our consultants are trained to assist business owners for all kinds of disasters. We often assist the SBA and FEMA when they set up disaster offices. So SBDC is a great opportunity. Any notices that would affect small businesses will be posted to our website. SBA.gov has disaster information. The South Carolina Emergency Management Division, this is a really good website that has a lot of good information on it, and they will be a great source should especially a natural disaster happen, because they will be the ones that control the roads, the recovery efforts, all of that, and all of that information will be posted on their website. And then the Insurance Institute for Home and Business Safety, the www.disastersafety.org. This is a great website that has a lot of mitigation procedures that you can see that may help you with your business. This is the end of the program. Are there any questions that I could answer for anyone?
Martin, we don't have any questions in the chat box yet, but please, anyone that has a question, please type that into the chat box. Also, I'll mention that we'll be sending out a post-event survey this afternoon after the end of the presentation. And then those that respond to the post-event survey will receive the presentation slides and a link to the webinar to review. We have recorded this webinar. So any information, any questions, please, we would love to hear from you. Here we go. Rosalind Goodwin, is there a disaster plan template available?
There may be from ready.gov. I have not checked with that lately, but I'm not aware of any specific templates for a disaster plan. Your local SBDC office can help you prepare one and create a template for you, but there may be one on ready.gov.
That was a great question. Thank you. Any other questions? Here we go. Michelle Hunter, aren't home-based business offices covered mostly by the home insurance?
Hey, Michelle, how you doing? You need to make sure that your insurance policy covers anything that could happen with your business or business equipment. In some cases, the homeowner's policy may cover that. In some cases, it may be an exclusion. So again, if you meet with your insurance provider, you want to make sure that they're aware that you do operate a home-based business, that you have business equipment in there, and you want to make sure that that equipment is covered as part of your policy.
And Michelle said, thank you, Martin. Does anyone else have any questions? So with there being no more questions, Martin, I think we'll conclude the presentation. And again, we'll be sending out a post-event survey for you to reply to. And then probably on Monday, midday or afternoon, we'll be sending out the presentation slides as well as a link to the recording of this webinar for those individuals that respond to the post-event survey. Thank you again. Thank you for your interest and enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you, Martin. That was great.
Thank you, Paul.